Sushant. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, good morning, Sushant. So today, folks, we will be discussing about fats. So fats are actually pretty important for our health. So over the years, a lot of fitness coaches, nutritionists, even doctors, they have discouraged a lot of people for consumption of fats. Okay, so with the advent of industrialization, seed oils have taken an important part in the Indian kitchens. So Sushant, let's begin the discussion and let's enlighten people about what is the importance of fats in our bodies, why we should be consuming it despite, several people saying that, it's not good for your health.
Okay, it's an interesting topic to be discussed, and also shed light on all these myths and wrong, flawed claims made by these fitness guys, right? So I really like protein and carbohydrates, which are being, protein being propagated as the only solution for a number of diseases, right? And then we say carbohydrates are bad, and then we also say that one of the macromolecule, which is topic of discussion and even confusion, right? Is fats. Again, fats is something which is very essential for our body, right? And I'll tell you few facts here, facts and not claims. So 80% of brain is made up of fat, right? And every cell inside our body, we have 37 trillion cells, right? And obviously 57% cells are microbial and balance are human, right? Each cell has a phospholipid bilayer, which is what we call as cell membranes, right? And cell membranes are the epicenter of the cells, and we need to maintain the structure and fluidity of those cell membranes to make sure that our cells are performing various functions needed to keep our body in a balanced situation, needed to provide the right set of sources of energy to keep the biological machinery running, right? And again, for to maintain that structure and fluidity and the architecture and stability of cell membrane, we need fats, right? We need lipids and cholesterol, which is very essential, right? So first thing when we are told, and I think we have discussed that this a lot of time, but I'll just briefly mention that. So cholesterol are not bad. In fact, low cholesterol is the starting point of various metabolic diseases. So we need cholesterol to maintain this cell structure. And I'll just tell you briefly a story, right? In 1958, there was a researcher called Ancel, which did a research on 22 countries and found that, out of these 22 countries, 7 countries, the people die of cardiovascular disease, and those people were consuming fats, right? And unfortunately, he didn't paint it the right picture because those fats were basically margarines and bad fats and trans fats, right? Which causes, and again, uh, the data which he published was instead of 22, he wrote that 7 out of 7 countries died of cardiovascular disease, and that was because of cholesterol. And also in the biopsy of the people who died, their arteries had this waxy material called cholesterol. And again, this made doctors and everyone believe that it is this cholesterol which has caused the disease. But cholesterol was there to minimize the damage done by inflammation, right? So ideally, since 1958 is what over 70 years have passed, and still we are living in the dogma that cholesterol causes heart disease, which is wrong, right? Which is now proven wrong, right? So again, cholesterol also comes from fat, so that is one of the essential, macromolecule or source of fat which is required for maintaining our cell structure. So first of all, you should not reduce cholesterol. That is the most important thing, right? And also because when you reduce cholesterol, your cell membrane is fragile. Your cells cannot sense what is outside. They cannot stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. They cannot stimulate protein synthesis, turnover. They cannot stimulate nitric oxide production. Then you have type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, sexual dysfunction, number of things, right? Second thing is I think you mentioned about triglycerides, right?
Yes, so my next question was about triglycerides as well. So there are several tests that provide us the parameters for triglycerides. So I'd really like to know that are they actually helpful? What kind of and are they indicating any interventions that can be provided along with them? Because I understand that they might be detecting something, they might be detecting, some abnormalities. So I think here it's very important for us to understand that, are those actually linked with any interventions that can be given at that certain point of time? Let's say if you have an abnormal triglyceride levels.
Okay, so first of all, abnormal triglyceride levels is not linked to consumption of fats. It is linked to the clearance, the balance between production and clearance, right? So ideally, these uh, uh, these people, fitness folks, they take a 2006 book and start, promoting wrong things. So ideally, you have to understand that triglycerides either you get from the fat you consume, or the excess carbohydrates is something which is converted by your liver into triglycerides and fatty acids. And again, unlike cholesterol and saturated fats, which integrate in your cell membrane, triglycerides do not do that. They actually are deposited in the lipid droplets in the cytoplasm. So they are cytoplasmic lipid droplets, and these are beneficial organelles which are meant to protect your cells, right? So it regulates your lipid metabolism. It acts as a precursor for synthesis of new cell membrane, right? It prevents lipid periodization, right? It actually helps in preventing the cells from the lipotoxicity, right? It further communicates with other organelles like mitochondria, right? Uh, to actually regulate the lipid and protein transfer and synthesis, right? So protein turnover synthesis, lot of cellular functions, you need these lipid droplets to play a key role, right? And again, so all these triglycerides are stored there. So what happens is in liver, they convert in triglyceride. It actually, since it is not soluble in water, it is packaged with very low density lipoprotein, what is called VLDL, and it travels to different body parts, including muscles, including heart and adipose tissue, right? And again, it is stored in adipose tissue at the time of need. So it's like a cellular energy deposit. At the time of need, it is broken down into free fatty acid, which is used for energy, right? So again, the problem with the triglyceride, I think I had an interview last week with one of the leading journalists, right? And we discussed about this, that the clearance of your triglyceride depends upon, since the triglyceride depends upon your functions of your gut and oral microbiome. For instance, if your oral microbiome is producing nitric oxide is something which regulates your glucose uptake, so it reduces your triglyceride levels, right? Similarly, if it is doing inflammation and producing LPS, which will go to liver, and it could lead to liver damage, and it could lead to accumulation of triglycerides, which leads to high TG level, right? And similarly for gut microbiome also, if your body is producing enough bitric acid, which actually leads to increases the fatty acid oxidation, which reduces the TG level, right? So there are a number of these. I'm not going to discuss a lot of these things, because again, it will be an entire different discussion, right? But yeah, for gut and oral microbiome could produce certain metabolites, could activate certain pathways that could uh, promote the triglyceride clearance and optimize the TG levels, right? So you do not fussing, do not afraid. You should have fats in your diet. Yeah, it's all a wrong information, and I think people who are promoting, they should be sued and they should be criminalized for that. They do not know the real how the body works, right? So again, cholesterol you discussed, we need to maintain our cell structure. I'm just summarizing it. We need to maintain cell structure and fluidity for performing various cellular functions. So we need cholesterol and lipids and fats, right, which includes saturated fat, and I will discuss saturated fat versus unsaturated fat shortly about it, right? And then triglyceride again is stored in lipid droplets. It is an It is an organelle which supports various cellular functions. It prevents toxicity in cells. It promotes it acts as precursor for synthesis of new membrane. It helps in uh, repair of the or prevents the injury of the membranes, right, and repair of the plasma membrane. So we need triglycerides for various functions, right? And again, it is stored in lipid droplets in the cytoplasmic, and it protects the cells, right? So again, the high TG level is an outcome of your gut and oral microbial dysbiosis, where it could produce certain metabolites which could cause you know uh, abnormal triglyceride levels, which is harmful for the cardiovascular health and for the metabolic health. Yeah.
I think that you've made a very interesting point here. So I think we can probably hop on to the next question. So like you said, there are saturated fats, then there are unsaturated fats, okay, and then there are mono and poly, okay. So could you tell us a brief difference and what should be the ideal consumption pattern, right? And also let us also cover in this the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids because that's also quite a debatable topic over here.
Okay. So understand the fats from their chemical structure, the double bonds, right? Saturated fat has zero double bonds. Mono by name is single, so one double bond, and poly means many double bonds, right? So polyanswer, the more the double bonds, the more it is prone to oxidation, right? So what I mean by oxidation is they can react with oxygen to produce a reactive oxidative species, which causes oxidative stress, which could damage your DNA, which could lead to inflammation, which could damage your mitochondria as well, and impair the could lead interfere with the cellular function, cellular signaling, right? A lot of these aspects. So ideally, again, omega 6 is a polyunsaturated fat, which is multiple double bond, which is really harmful, and that's why we say that omega 6 we should consume less of omega 6. And also, there may be proponents of people saying that no, we need cold press is not harmful. We should consume polyunsaturated fats. This is all wrong myth, people say. But the thing you have to understand that how the seed oils and vegetable oil and canola oils and all these oils, all palm oils are made in the factory. It is made at a very high temperature,
Are you
right?
also referring here to sunflower oil because that is also
Yeah, yeah,
produced
yeah,
from
yeah,
seeds?
yeah,
Then
yeah.
I believe mustard oil is also from the
No, mustard oil,
flower.
I'm not sure. Flour is different, seeds is different.
That's
So
the
must,
flower. Then
yeah.
safflower oil is something that we have, very prominently. But I think palm oil is something which is not pretty good. That's from the
Palm oil,
seeds.
seed oils, canola oil,
Yes,
right? All
yes.
these which are coming from seeds, there's no vegetable.
Cotton
So
seed, and because in
rape
there is
seed,
a
cotton seed, right?
cotton
Palm
seed
oil.
oil is there. Yes,
Even
refined.
sunflower oil, I've mentioned, I think
Yes.
we discussed this about sunflower oils also. Anything which has anything which has multiple double bonds, right?
Okay.
Mostly seed oil. So you can look at the list of seed oils which are harmful, right?
And also when you're cooking food, right? When we are talking about cold pressed oils, I've heard that they should not be heated a lot because otherwise it'll,
So
elicit.
I'm coming out of that. So again,
Yes.
uh, to some extent, polyunsaturated fat, which are cold pressed, it means they are not made in a hurry. They are not overheated in the factory to make them. It is actually extracted. For instance, olive oil, when it is extracted, olive oil has single double bond. It doesn't have multiple. It has more of monounsaturated fat, less of polyunsaturated fat. Do has polyunsaturated fat, but it has less of polyunsaturated fat. And again, uh, cold press means it is extracted in a very normal way over a couple of years, and it's not something which is extracted and overheated in factories to be made early to and to be delivered in the markets. Again, when they're over, there's a change in color, and again, that cannot be, and the smell is very bad. So they put in chemicals also into that, right? Before it has been so the bottles of all these oils which are high in polyunsaturated fats are actually toxic before you consume, and these oils are so even you take a one teaspoon of oil which will stay in your cells for 680 days, right? So it's too high, and again, it is prone to oxidation, right? So you need to check, and you can't check. You need to check how much it is heated, right? When it is being made into the commercialized bottles.
So you're telling us that if I eat a samosa, which supposedly has 6 to 8 bowls of oil, because that's what it takes to.
Which oil? So again,
Yeah, yeah.
it
So,
was
so, so it could be a refined oil. Obviously, it's not going to be,
dalda and all that, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
that, yeah, yes. So it's going to stay inside the system for like 680 days.
yeah.
That's insane. That's totally insane.
Yeah. And
So, and
this is one thing. So the first criteria, which fat you should consume, is based on their chemical structure, the number of double bonds, right? So we know that omega 6 and omega 3 are considered to be essential fatty acids, which we need to ingest from our diet for regulating our health. Another thing which has come up and which a lot of people do not agree, and that's why I'm coming to saturated fats. Now, we have been told for years, for decades, that saturated fat causes heart disease, causes diabetes, causes some lot of issues, even causes cancer and liver disease and a lot of these things, and makes you fat. That's all bullshit. You know, again, because see, we are considering putting all these saturated fats in one, in one category, in one, and then again, those are different. Those have different aspects, and it is determined by the number of carbon. So we have odd chain saturated fatty acids, we have even chain saturated fatty acids, right? So for instance, we would have stearic acid, right? Which is again, I think C16 carbon atoms. Then we have another one, we have C14 and C12. Sorry, C18, C16, C14. So stearic acid, I think, is C18, right? And again, stearic acid is said to just a second. Yeah, so C18 is stearic acid set to change your composition of gut microbiota and promote the bitrate and propionic production, which we know bitrate is one of the key short chain fatty acid which stimulates satiety. So stearic acid is not bad. But again, C16 and C14 are not good. They stimulate production of reactive oxidative species, right? And again, coming on to odd chain saturated fatty acids such as C15, which is now considered a molecule, a holy grail for longevity, right? So C15 is pentadeconic acid, right? So pentadeconic acid has it actually, as I was mentioning about cell membrane, it integrates in cell membrane, so it strengthens your, it improves the cell membrane stability by 80%. It improves your mitochondrial dysfunction, it repairs your mitochondria. It also play a key role in various activation of various receptors such as AMPK pathway and AKT pathway, which is required for maintaining cellular homeostasis, which is required for glucose metabolism, which is required for various longevity pathways activation. So this fat is really, really beneficial. Similarly, it could actually inhibit mTOR. So people longevity go folks know mTOR, and mTOR helps you clear the senescent zombie cells, right? Which could be harmful. It prevents programmed cell death such as ferroptosis, right? And again, it also inhibits something called SDAC6, which is required for which uh, prevents the cancer cell growth and proliferation, right? It also reduces the inflammation, and one of the most important aspect here is which is concerned with the child obesity and child developing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? Because we are deficient of C15, we are deficient of pentadeconic acid, right? And when we are deficient, our cell membranes become fragile, our cells become fragile. It is very, very applicable in case of red blood cells because when red blood cells become fragile, they become weak. They are engulfed by Kupffer cells, which is again a macrophages in your liver. And again, the corpse is left behind are iron, so there is free fire on iron in your liver, and again it leads to liver dysfunction and ferroptosis, which is and program cell death off. And again, you have this, when you have this, you have your liver cannot function, you have high triglyceride levels, you have oxidized LDL, you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? So again, by taking this particular saturated fat, you can actually prevent your children from obesity, type 2 diabetes, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Another two important things here, right? Now, C15 is something which could be metabolized. So again, it is C15. So it really every in every meta when it is metabolic, every two carbons goes away. So essentially, it also could be metabolized into propionic acid, and we know the propionic acid is plays a role in stimulating GLP-1 production, right? Which prevents type 2 diabetes and obesity, right? So ideally, it do help in preventing obesity, right? So people who do not have these, not consuming this, so probably they will not be having GLP-1 production. Second thing, most important is the fiber which we consume is synthesized by your gut microbiome uh, into production of pentadeconic acid, C15, right? So if the people who are saying that do not consume fat, are they also saying that do not consume fiber? Right, right. So again, what I have found recently is that pentadeconic acid could be metabolized into something called pentadecyl carnitine PDC, which actually can travel to your brain via blood-brain barrier and could improve your mood and cognitive health, right? So it has a role to play in your metabolic health, your cardiovascular health, even preventing your cancer, overcoming inflammation, plays a key role in your longevity by activating certain pathways, our longevity pathways, by improving the mitochondrial biogenesis, by overcoming the cellular decay, the decay in the cellular functions, right? Even impacting your brain health, right? Curbing inflammation, aging, right? So again, we have to think that some saturated fats are bad. For instance, uh, palmitic acid is bad because palmitic acid could lead to production of reactive oxidative species, which causes cardiovascular disease. Or myristic acid C14 is also bad, right? But again, all saturated fats are not bad. We have stearic acid, which is beneficial. We have C8 octadeconic acid, which is also beneficial. MCT oil is beneficial. It stimulates your mitochondrial biogenesis. It promotes better exercise performance as well, right? Pentadeconic acid is very very essential, right? And you can easily get from butter and ghee and even full fat milk, right? So the ideally, after even telling people do not consume saturated fat because they will cause heart disease, still the number of people dying of cardiovascular disease is even increasing now, right? So that's not a reason which people are propagating, right? So again, we have to first think, even within the saturated fat, first criteria is obviously we need to consume fat which does not have double bonds or which has only single double bonds, right? And we are also to look at different classes of saturated fat which are beneficial or which are harmful, depending upon what. So you should know all these things, right? Unfortunately, we treat all saturated fats same. We treat pentadeconic acid at par with, mystic as C14 and C12 or C16 and C14, right? So, but we do not differentiate between stearic acid and palmitic acid and myristic acid, right? So essentially, you have to consider the difference between all. You have to understand that palmitic acid is harmful, stearic acid is good, pentadeconic acid is good, heptadeconic acid C17 is also good, right? So all the odd chain saturated fatty acids are actually good, most of them, and even chain also, some are good, some are bad, right? So again, what you're consuming, you should know all this, and probably all the food companies should actually declare this on their labels, that what kind of certified they've used, right?
I think if fats are so much important for the body. I think time and again we've
Mm,
seen a lot of our previous customers, they were, those who were on statins and all those medications, they were not really, consuming fats, and we could actually see the direct correlation between the cognitive decline and, you know, their less consumption of fats through the data
And
that we have.
I'll tell you live example from the Indian customer also that I don't not want to name the company, but there's a fitness company who propagated too much of protein consumption and soya and all these things, and the particular person developed an autoimmune issue related to skin, and they were telling people not to consume fats,
Okay,
right?
that's horrible, I would say.
Yeah,
And
so.
and I actually remember Dr. Thomas Seyfried's words that, mindlessly they've been doing these things. He referred this thing in the context of, cancer therapies. Now I am actually referring here to the mindlessly consumption of protein over here.
Yeah,
So
so you have to another point you have to think, when you have cancer, right? We have discussed and during our podcast with Professor Thomas Seyfried that the cancer cells thrive on glucose and glutamine, right? They cannot burn ketones, they cannot burn fatty acids, and that's why we have these lipid droplets where all the fatty acids are triglycerides are stored, right? Again, they also, unfortunately, also protect cancer cells again, But the thing is, fats, what kind of fats you have to consume, even within the saturated fat, you have to further break down. C16, C14, C12. C16 is good, which is stearic acid, because it could stimulate production of bitrate by changing modulating the functions and the composition of the gut bacteria, right? Palmistic acid is is bad because it causes oxidative stress, and ANC, C12, C14 is bad. C15 is the holy grail for longevity. It activates various longevity pathways, right?
hmm,
You don't need to take external drugs with a lot of these longevity folks are taking, right? That this is something which can be easily, in fact, one more thing, I'm not sure about this. There's not much research on it, but liposomes made up of, I think liposomes, yeah, liposome made of these fatty acid, 15 fatty acids could actually also regulate your telomere length, right?
hmm.
Probably I'm not sure whether we have too much data on this, right? But again, that could be made for lipo. Just a second, I'll just tell you. Wait. Uh, so liposomes, I think I'm not sure. I have to check, but I'll if I have a research paper, I'll share that. So liposomes again could play a role in telomere length regulation, right? So again, another thing, because telomere length is regulate is you can prevent the shortening of telomere length by activating telomerase, which again is activated by nitric oxide, and again you need nitric oxide. Your cells need to produce nitric oxide. For that, your cells should have a stronger cell membrane. For that, you should have good saturated fatty acids supporting your stability of your cell membrane, right?
So
So.
I think, Sushant, I have another question here. I
Mm,
think with this we'll be ending this. We'll be
mm,
concluding this discussion.
mm,
That when we
mm,
are talking about the molecules, I think these are the molecules and compounds that we're talking about in terms of any sort of micros or macros, right? So why is it that the healthcare practitioners and the you know all the I'd say the fitness and the nutrition, because it's a very and these molecules are very important part of the nutrition. So why aren't they talking about it? What is the reason that is
mm.
preventing them?
So either they do not know, or they just want to scratch the surface, or they're too much focused on macromolecules, they're too much focused on protein. And see, you could see there again, it would be people would be going against me and ranting me on this, but you have seen number of protein companies, and we had good fights on protein consumption and absorption,
I agree.
right?
I agree.
Right?
And
And
even it's not
then
only us. There are many prominent, healthcare practitioners. I mean, prominent names who have said that India is not a protein deficient nation. It's not only us. Others also saying that with scientific
See, tell
background.
me one thing, Sakshi. Tell me one thing. Let us assume India is a protein deficient nation. Let us believe them for one minute, right? You have so many protein shakes, powders, supplements, now protein snacks, now protein roti, and I don't know what all is
Flour
coming.
and what all
Right, what all
foods.
is coming, and then
But it's
we
still,
have
still, still,
we
it's
have
still they're
we have,
deficient.
and still they're deficient. So
The deficiency still
it
persists
is
as
not
per
about
them.
consumption. It is your biochemistry problem. It's you if you have a protein deficiency, it is your biochemistry problem, right? So essentially, you need to fix your biology rather than just galloping too much of protein powders and shakes and all these supplements, right? Uh, and again, I don't want to get into another protein discussion here because again, one more thing which is important for everyone who takes protein powders, who have been taking protein powders for last 5, 7, 10, 15 years, right? Just ask one thing. L-arginine is a semi-essential amino acid which our body also produce via urea cycle. And we are never deficient of L-arginine. Even people who have kidney issues also, normally our body produces 10 times of L-arginine than is required on a daily basis for regular biochemical functions, right? In fact, the excess L-arginine could be converted not into nitric oxide but superoxide, which causes oxidations, which could other oxidize tetrahydrobiopterin, which could lead to functional loss of nitric oxide, which could cause type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease and a number of other diseases, right? So essentially, L-arginine should not be part of your protein powders.
I think that's something we'll be constantly saying again and again that, L-arginine in excess, it's quite harmful. We have, made a lot of videos and people can check that on our YouTube channel that, how L-arginine impacts your body. So we have videos, we have done some videos on that. So Sushant, I think with this we have come to the conclusion of this podcast. And would you like to add anything before we end this discussion here?
Two things here. First thing is, triglyceride is not a problem of consumption of fats, right? Obviously, excess of anything is bad. So obviously, you should have good number of good fats in your diet daily, right? Whether you're drinking butter, ghee, olive oil, or whatever it is, right? Even coconut oil, right? Uh, you should be able to differentiate between different saturated fats. Just a rule, or chain saturated fatty acids C15, C17 are good, right? They are actually one of the key essential molecule for longevity. Uh, it could maintain your cell structure. It could make your cells perform all the function better. It is protein synthesis, protein folding, protein delivery, whatever it is, right? The replicative cycling, the regenerative cycling, signaling, sorry, cycling, regenerative signaling, and autophagy. Number of things, to promote those functions, you need to have good amount of fats which have zero or one single double bonds. You should avoid fats which have multiple double bonds. That's a clear formula. I'm not getting into which is overheated, not heated. I do not know. But prima facie, most of the commercial oils are heated at a very higher
I think for
temperature.
India, I think when we talk about India, we have a lot of cold pressed oil. We have coconut oil, we have groundnut oil, we have mustard oil, safe to consume. And olive oil is obviously there, but you cannot, heat it and cook
See,
anything
the
in.
problem is actually the problem is
So
people still believe saturated fats are bad. They are not all are not bad. Some are good, some are bad, right? Palmistic acid is bad. Stearic
we
acid is
have
good.
ghee. I mean, ghee has been for ages in India. Ghee has been used to be a staple. In the used to be used in staple
Still
form.
in Himachal, we live, people consume ghee,
Yes, we have ghee with every dish, and then white butter, North India's most relished delicacy, along with all your breakfast items and all those things. So ghee and butter are the
So people
best.
who say that ghee and butter causes heart disease, do you have any evidence? Can you tell me one person who died of heart disease had consumed too much of ghee or butter, or do you have that? No, because and now there are research papers. I'm going to share the research paper. There are research which says that C15 is a longevity molecule, right? To understand those signs, it is very easy to say do not eat. Nobody can tell you what you should consume first thing. There's so many molecules, so much each molecule has so many biochemical function going on inside the body. So thing is, all these the point is that these D2C brands have been made on certain assumptions that we are protein deficient, we need to consume too much of protein, saturated fats are bad, right? Seed oils are not bad, blah blah blah. So again, we are consuming these foods, especially people who are living in towns, big towns and metros. We are consuming these foods. We are inviting trouble for ourselves.
That's true. So I think, thank you, Sushant. Here we have discussed very significant, things about fat. And for all the listeners, thank you again for listening to our podcast. And we'll be back with another episode soon. So, Sushant, any revelations that you would like to make with regard to the triglycerides?
Yeah, so people who have signed up for us, who are planning to sign up, or who have used our product in the past, we are. I did mention last time that we have. I'm going to also write a blog on this, the new additions in our platform. But we recently have included another core about cellular health, right? Where we look at various pathway which is impacting cell health. They're going to share the triglyceride metabolism score at a cellular and molecular level. So probably you could know whether you have TG high or low before it could even show up in your blood works.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sushant. That was a wonderful discussion, and we'll be back soon with another episode, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.